Hi, welcome back to my channel, Everything About Hallmark. And this is Sunday, so that means I have another prediction video, which are my favorite to make. I love interacting with everyone, and I get so excited when I see your predictions. It gives me such great ideas, and I get to do more research. So in this video, I'm going to show you how we went from this to this. Stay tuned. If you like what you see, click that button and subscribe. This prediction video is different than the others because in the beginning, I'm going to review, recap, and explain some things and let you in on my thought process. It's like a think aloud, which I do with my students. So I have a different approach, I guess, than the average person because I am a writer and I teach writing. So I may be looking at things differently. It doesn't mean I'm an expert. I'm just showing you and sharing with you where my mind is going. So everything is linked to the word books. I think you're going to hear me say the word books 42,000 times. I know that's hyperbole, but that's what it feels like. So the writers are amazing with When Calls the Heart. They are like, you don't even realize it as a viewer, how talented they must be until you pick apart one little thing like a book. In Season 6, Episode 1, there is a scene between Laura and Elizabeth. And it wasn't just to give the actress who plays Laura some screen time. It was really to introduce the whole concept of books. You see Laura handing off a book, as it was in the picture, to Elizabeth. And she says, "Thank you for the book." And Elizabeth's shocked. She's like, "You read it already?" And she says, "Yes, I love Jane Austen." "Well, I have more for you." So there's this lending of books going on. And there was no reason to put that in there because that doesn't really have to do with Laura's education, which they touch on a little bit later on. It's just a piece that's in there, but there is a reason. Because when you go to episode number 2, then you will see Elizabeth meeting Lucas. And when she's going into the center of town, they're talking and chatting, and he's asking her if she would like to apply for the job of waitress. He doesn't realize she's the teacher, and she says, "You don't even know me." And he goes, "I'm good at reading people." And she says, "Well, I would rather, or I prefer reading a good book." And he's like, "Well, see, you are intelligent." So there's this whole book piece that goes in there. And then when he realizes who she is and what she's doing, he says, "We're going to have open house. I'm welcoming everyone. Please come." And he goes, "Unless you're at home reading a good book." And they kind of have like this little flirty moment. And I was like, oh my goodness, that this is who's going to be her new man, because I knew they were introducing 2 new characters. But I said, I know the other's a Mountie, and that would be the obvious choice. But oh, I love this chemistry already going on with these 2. Which leads us to episode number 3, where Emily, her students, coming in the morning and they're getting ready to start the day, and she's bringing in books, and she's saying, "Oh, I wish we had a library." And Elizabeth said, "I'm working on it." Then you'll see later Elizabeth talking with Rosemary, trying to get the scuttlebutt to see if town council is going to vote yes. And she finds out that they would love a library for Hope Valley. They just don't think it's in the budget. So she's a little sad and depressed about that. And then in the next episode, there's more about books. As she's dismissing her students, she's saying, "Don't forget to donate the books for our book drive for our new library that we hope to have soon." So it's constantly books, 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 books. And even when she interacts with Lucas, it has to do with books. Not all of her interaction, but quite a bit of it. Then in episode 6, you'll see her at the mercantile. She's putting something on the announcement board, and Lucas is there, and he sees that she really is looking for space for a new library, and he says every town needs a library. So he's in agreement with her, and they have like a little exchange, and this is where he asks her to start calling her Lucas. So every time they interact, we get a little bit more of their relationship. But again, revolving around books. And I love what happens next. Lucas donates a building to her and the library, which brings them together, which gives them a lot of opportunity for the rest of the season 6 to be together, learning about each other, chatting, talking, interacting, building the shelves in the library, getting it ready, planning for it. And there is that great scene where he hands her the key to the library, and their hands, like they zero in on their hands. They're not doing this just to do it. Now, it's books. There's that key. To me, that symbolizes they don't even realize that the books are the key to their hearts. It's what's going to bring them together. And it does. As the season progresses, it gets even more delicious. So the next episode there's many times a mention of the book throughout the whole community because they're building a library. But there's this scene where the children get a little too excited by some stories, and then Allie, as mischievous as she is, she scares them, and Opal winds up getting hurt, and then Nathan's there, and they're all in the infirmary, and Nathan's mad, and he's blaming Lucas, and she's like, you can't blame Lucas.
You can't blame the library or Lucas for what happened. There's nothing wrong with being a book lover.
Yeah. He's a lover, all right. I'm just not sure about the book part.
I'm sorry.
For what?
If your job makes you believe the worst in people.
For this, he's a lover of books, and he's like, yeah, he's a lover. I don't know about the book part. So this puts like a little idea in her head. And as Elizabeth is leaving, she sees Lucas inside the library. And when she walks in, he's putting books away, and he goes, hello, Madam Librarian. And she sort of tries to confront him to make sure that he's not doing all this because of her. And she's a little embarrassed to say it. And there's like this awkwardness, but there's this wonderful, delicious tension. And that's where that quote from Dangerous Liaison comes in, and I love it. I even think that's the title of one of the episodes. I don't know if it's this particular episode or the next one. I think it is this one. But anyway, that's another thing. He always quotes books. She quotes books. She's quoted books from the first episode of season 1, and everybody thought she was strange because, the town of Coal Valley wasn't used to that at the time. But anyway, I digress. So he leans in to her, and she's like, and when he backs away, you see that whole sigh. Look for yourself. By the way, here's a disclaimer. I do not have video, as you can tell. I do not have video capturing software. I do, but I'm still learning how to use it. So it doesn't stop me from doing this kind of stuff. I do it anyway. I work around it. But it's not the best quality, but you're familiar. You probably watched this scene if you are a lover of Lucas and Elizabeth 9,000 times like me. All right, here we go.
Why are you so interested in setting up the library?
Hope Valley needs one.
Is that the only reason? Because if I have in any way led you to believe... Never mind.
Now, I'm not going to deny that I was aware of your beauty. But as I got to know you, I became fascinated by your goodness. Dangerous Liaisons. One of my favorites. I wanted a library because it seemed like a good thing. No disrespect.
Okay, so now we're getting to the end of season 6. There are many book references. I told you I say book 2,942 times. I think I changed the number, but anyway. So he goes in and he says, oh, this is a book that he was recommending she read to little Jack. And they're at the end of that table and they frame out like a family. And this does not gonna go unnoticed. It is seen by, of course, Nathan, who he can't even pay attention to Allie, who's trying to show him about the shelf. And then also Bill sees it too, because, he zeroes in and he wants to be the protector. But anyway, Isn't that a message? Oh my goodness, what a message. I'm sorry, let me fix that. Before I continue on with season 9, I wanted to say this. As a writer, you don't just put things into, sorry, I feel so crooked. I'm sorry. You don't just put things into your storyline, whether it be a script or it be a novel or a short story. It has to advance the storyline or it gets taken out. Your editor's going to be like, I've been on both ends, writer and editor. It's going to go. So, all of these clues are important. They're not just there randomly. They're there for a reason. So the writers knew what they were doing. And I will talk at the very end about that. Something that sealed it in my head that made me know that this was the catalyst. Books were the catalyst to this giant, beautiful romance that's actually one for the books, you know? Oh my goodness, it's a storybook romance. It's so beautiful. So anyway, we go into season 7. The focus between these two is still books, but it's shifted now. So Lucas has more books. He's donating. He asked his mother to send from his childhood house. I don't know if they have one. They traveled so much. Maybe we'll find out. Anyway, and she's like, Elizabeth loves them. And then she's like, I love this book. And he goes, I'll tell my mother. She'll be flattered. And Elizabeth learns that his mother is an editor. And then he learns that she's wanted to be a teacher and a writer since she was 5, which then lets her know that he's got the little hots for her in a very old-fashioned kind of way. He says, oh, you were a force to be reckoned with then. And she's got that little look on her face. So now they're going to have this whole relationship in season 7 that revolves around books again, but in a different way. It's about Elizabeth's book. It's not so much the library. The library's there in the background. It's a new setting for some amazing scenes, which I will get to. But this is where he says, I grew up around books. I know a lot about books. Let me put it to use. Let me see some of your work, because she shares some of her thoughts like as if she wasn't any good. I'm sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this now gets to deepen the relationship because they get to interact. She's vulnerable. When she comes to him to show her book to her, she's kind of like hugging it like it's her baby. And as a writer, I know how she feels. She's passing it off and she's like, be honest with me. Like, you don't have to, she doesn't say sugarcoat it, but she's saying, be honest with me. And I love this little segue where he says to her, I would never be anything but honest with you. Not just about the book, but just life in general. Like, he has no secrets from her. If she's asking, he's going to tell. I love when he says that. So there's a double meaning in there. And of course, the link was books. So, you are familiar with the story, I'm sure. And if you're not, stop watching this and go watch it and then come back, okay? Because I don't want anything to spoil it. But the rest of you probably have all this memorized, but maybe didn't think of it this way, that whole link. So now they are interacting, and she has a little bit of hurt feelings, and then he feels bad that he hurt her, and you could see that vulnerability between the two of them, her wanting to be accepted, him wanting to be accepted. It's growing. And then the next thing you know, he's inspired her to write her own book, and it's a novel. And I love when this happens because she and he have these little flirty encounters, him laughing and her asking him questions, and then him thinking maybe the character Luther Brandt is based upon him, and she says that to him. She goes, you didn't think it was you? And he's like, oh no, right? And it's so funny because he did. And then later on, there's a cute interaction in the mercantile about, he read further. And then there's even a conflict that arises where he's so excited for her, he sends them to his mother, and that hurts her. But in the end, when she talks it over with Rosemary, she forgives them for that. And he asks for forgiveness, which I love about Lucas. He always does that. He's like, I'm sorry. I see what I did wrong. And he goes straight to her. And he doesn't waste time, nor does she. So they repair that. And in the end, she winds up that she's going to be published, which leads us to another delicious scene in the library. Now, I love libraries. I couldn't imagine. You know what? All the romance that could be in a library. I didn't know it until I was watching this show. So at the end, he wants to celebrate with her that she, is going to be published. And they go and they have an undate. And it is quite adorable. Just look at how she's looking at him.
gently brush your hand as I pass you your glass. And hold your gaze for longer than normal.
And I would think that was very sweet.
Now, I have to go back because in season 7, something really magical happens because of a book. This time, it's not even Elizabeth's book. It is Virginia Woolf's newest book. They go on a vacation overnight together and they share the love of books, but then you find out it's really Lucas who is doing all of this because he wanted to do it for her, and it comes out that he really hasn't even read the book yet, but he did that for her, and it's sinking in. And this is when that whole beautiful dinner comes in, and they talk about, romance and how he learned from his father to be patient. And that's funny because that led to the whole theme of the next season, season 8, patience, books and patience now. But anyway, as you could see, books have always been the theme. We get to season 8. Elizabeth is a published author now. She's waiting to, revise the books. Now, because she has to revise her book, that leads us to get more insight into Lucas, and we get to meet the mom. And meeting the mom wasn't just about editing her book. It was more about the relationship and the background of who the mom was, why she behaved the way she did to Lucas. Because if we hadn't met her, we wouldn't have had a very good impression of her, because in the beginning of season 8, we see Elizabeth outside and she's reading or doing something with the bunny, and Lucas stops by, quotes from the bunny, makes a bunny quote. I'm sorry, my South Jersey is in and I'm rambling. And Elizabeth's like, oh, you're familiar. Your mother read that to you. And he's like, my mother taught me to read. So she seems like she's harsh and hard, but you get to see her and you get to sort of see a little bit into her where she feels bad that she is the way that she is. And she really does love her son and how she lost it along the way. But books gave us all of that insight, again, which helps us with the relationship of Lucas and Elizabeth. So when she finally gets her book sent to her, it comes to Lucas and he delivers it. And of course, there's that whole miscommunication. But we see her with the book out. We see her take off her ring, put it to the side, and she's written a note to Lucas. At the time, we don't realize it's an invitation. What is it an invitation to? A book reading. And when that finally does happen, that's how we got from the scene with Laura to this, where they have accepted each other. They're going to court and they're in the library, just the two of them. And this time, Elizabeth is hosting the private reading for Lucas. And she is not going to even read her book. She wants to talk about her new book, which I think is a metaphor just for the two of them. Like, they have a storybook romance. And she talks a little bit about it. And then she, says she has no more words, because then they kiss and they have this whole beautiful scene that just gives us a promise of what's to come in season 9. So this is how you could pay attention to the clues. And the writers all the way back in season 6, before it started, had an end game for them. And we can see it happening at the end of season 8. I want to show you something. I always take lots and lots of notes. I don't know. It's like my passion, and I really think it out. Okay, so now here we go. It comes to the predictions. By no means am I an expert. Season 9 could come, and if anybody's watching these videos and remember them, they could say, boy, that Dorenzis, I don't even know my last name, Roxanne Dorenzis. That Roxanne was totally off base. I'm never listening to another one of her predictions. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that I'm pretty good, like a 50-50 there. So you come back for more, because I do love doing these. Okay, so here we go. Now, the book. Of course, these are predictions about books. I have a lot of predictions about Elizabeth and Lucas, and I'm not even getting into that for a while, because I'm getting some more clues from all of those behind the scenes, and they just started. Thank you, Peter DeLuise. Thank you for that. But anyway, I have 4 predictions that revolve around books. And of course, because of the books, it has to do with what's going to happen with Elizabeth and Lucas. So my first prediction is a simple one, and you probably all have it too. She has to have some kind of book signing in Hope Valley. I mean, that's her family there. And she could host it at the saloon, but in my mind, she's going to host it at the library. Also, I predict that she's going to go on a book tour. How large of a book tour, I don't know, because I don't know totally how that it revolves around the rest of the storylines. I don't have enough information. I have a wish list, and that's something different. So when she goes on the book tour, I predict that Lucas is somehow involved. Like he attends and goes with her, if not for all of it, part of it. And the reason why I say that is because he keeps saying he's been like this important part of all of it. He has a lot of connections because he grew up in it because of his family. So I think he would be there to, as a companion with her, to share in her joy, and also to like it be like an introduction for her into that whole society. And I predict that they're going to realize that their family's paths have crossed somewhere, either through sister, parent, business, something. They are going to have some kind of mutual connections. Whether they're good or bad, I don't know, but I definitely think they're going to see that their worlds are connected. They just didn't realize it. Also, I have a couple ideas about this. When she's on the book tour, I imagine that it could be in the middle of season 9 this happens, or part of season 9. And that I still have the same where Lucas participates in some capacity and we learn more about Lucas. I also think that this is going to be how we learn about the father, maybe even get to meet the dad, because he'll be there with Helen. Maybe they're all there for like one of their functions. Maybe it's even in New York City where she has to go, because I think that's where the publisher is. But it could also happen has already happened when season 9 opens, because in season 9, not in season 9, in all the seasons, they don't pick up where they left off. They usually talk about, she does her journal writing, and you can hear her doing her little monologue of what's been happening. So stuff has already happened. There's been a time lapse. And it could be that she went out on a book tour, and when she and Lucas came back, all kinds of stuff was going on in the town, which we know that is going to happen. Now, I have that in a Hope Valley prediction video, a different one. Go watch that if you want. So, again, book signing in the library, book signing out of town, connection to Lucas's past and her past. And my fourth prediction that has to do with the books is that it's going to affect her teaching some way, like her teaching schedule. And at first it might be something that's considered negative. It could be, especially with that superintendent looming around. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could just be that she needs someone to cover for her. And that's really what my focus is. So we've had in the past Carson covered most recently. Before we had Rosemary. That was hilarious. But I'm thinking maybe that's the opportunity to bring Katie back. I know when she was asking Katie Yost about how her life was, it was that review, that connection where Katie looked up to her from the past seasons and then moved on with her life. But they introduced it again, and that could be a clue that she will come back and she'll take over for a while in some capacity. But I do think that the schedule of her writing and the schedule with her teaching, she might even have to come up to a point where she thinks she has to make a decision between the two. So this could be all part of the conflict. I'm not saying she has to choose between the two. It could just be part of what the storyline is. So I think that's how the book theme of Lucas and Elizabeth will continue on into season 9. Before I end, I just want to say this. In Paul Greene's interview with Chris McNally, he was asking about his audition. And of course, most of you who are big fans will know that he first auditioned for Lucas and then he didn't think it went so well. They didn't say that to him, but he felt like it because he was late and he was nervous because he was late and a whole bunch of things. And then a few days later, or a couple weeks later, they asked him to come back again to audition for Nathan. And then in that same day for Lucas. And that's who in his heart, he said he would have been happy with both. He really wanted to be the part of Lucas. And Paul asked him which scene was it, and he goes, they were made up scenes. And he talks about the scene with Lucas and Elizabeth, the chemistry test. So this is my point. The show did not even start yet, okay? They didn't even choose the actor to be Lucas. And the writers knew what direction they were going in. And guess what was the theme? Books. Am I screaming? I'm sorry, I'm screaming. So it is books. And here's what the test screening was. And I think I talked about this incorrectly somewhere. I know I did, where I said it was on a train, but it wasn't a train. It's a stagecoach. And you know what I'll do? I will link. If you haven't seen if you haven't seen Paul Greene's podcast, you must watch it because he has fabulous interviews with other actors, including Kevin McGarry. So anyway, I'll link that down in the description. But back to this. So Chris says that it is a stagecoach that's going that Elizabeth's riding in, and he kind of hijacks it and says, oh, I want to get in. You don't mind if I get in. So now they're in this intimate compartment going on this ride, and it kind of perturbs her. And she's challenging him, and they're having this whole conversation because he doesn't get into detail, but she's questioning whether he's well read or not, and it has to do with books. That is their chemistry test. And he said there's really cool ending where he's like sort of like sleeping and she's like, you really don't know and about books, you're not well read kind of thing. And he quotes and says something about the character and proves that he is. And that kind of schools the teacher. I love that. Anyway, see, books was the link. Books, it should be books were, but books, I'm thinking that as a theme, was the link to this most fantabulous, fantastic, romantic, whatever you want to call it, romance relationship. And I am so excited for season 9 and where the book or books is going to take us. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next Sunday, and you have a good day.